Welcome to Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, or it could be whiskey with an analyst reading a spreadsheet, linking crime events, identifying a series, and getting the latest scoop on association news and training. So please don't beat that analyst and join us as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
Thank you for joining me. I hope many aspects of your life are progressing. My name is Jason Elder, and today we have a special episode. We are going to highlight the agenda for the Midwest Gang Investigator Association's conference coming up May 8th through the 11th at the DoubleTree by Hilton Hotel in South Bend, Indiana. And to help me out, I have Lieutenant Kyle Dombrowski. Lieutenant, how we doing?
Hey, not too bad. How you doing, Jason?
All right. What we're going to do with this episode is I'm going to have Kyle introduce himself in a second, and we're going to go over the association information. We're going to go over the conference, and then we're going to do a deep dive into the agenda, going point by point. So those that may be brand new to the conference, that are first timers, will get an understanding of what to expect, and those that maybe go every year will get a little bit insight of what to expect for this year. And for those that aren't going to the conference this year, maybe you listen to this and think, I want to go to it next year, or maybe my gang association should have some of these topics built into their conference. So I'm hoping to get a little bit of something for everybody in this episode. But Lieutenant, first off, if you could just introduce yourself and give a little bit of background for our listeners.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. Kyle Dombrowski, a lieutenant with South Bend PD here in northern Indiana, where the University of Notre Dame is at. So we're just 2 hours east of Chicago, kind of in the middle between that, Indianapolis, Indiana, close to Detroit, Michigan, and kind of Cleveland, Ohio. So we have roughly, 100,000 plus population in our city, and I oversee our strategic focus unit, which is our gang and drug investigations, our strategic intel office, which is kind of a fancy name for crime prevention, working nuisance properties, different other community tasks, and then our crime analyst. We have a crime analyst unit. We have 6 crime analyst civilians in our PD. And that also encompasses our real-time crime center, which we just started late last year, 2022. So that's kind of what I oversee at the PD, and looking forward to, thank you for the opportunity to highlight not only MGIA, but also our National Gang Conference coming up in about a month.
All right. Well, yeah, let's get into that then, because you're vice president of the association. And I guess for those that might not be aware of MGIA, what's the jurisdiction, goal, purpose?
Yeah, so MGIA was founded in the late 80s, and it is 12 chapter associations. So we have Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, Wisconsin, Illinois, Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, and then the Dakotas, north and south. So out of those 12 states, we have active and retired members of law enforcement, whether you're a crime analyst, a police officer, a sheriff's deputy, working corrections, a prosecutor, a district attorney. But if you're in any type of level of law enforcement, whether it's local, state, or federal, this is a great association. We're one of the biggest in terms of not only membership, but actually, coverage of how many states we have. But it is a great way to not only network, get up-to-date training, getting valuable resources to not only better yourself, but for your agency, and most importantly, for your community. So we like to hit on that huge. And then every year we host a large conference, which we call our national conference. But each state also hosts multiple trainings, 1 to 2 or 3 a year as well, to keep those local. So our main mission is just to provide the awareness, not only for law enforcement, but we also do presentations for the public, whether it's a school, a business, etc., to try and identify, and just give that knowledge to everybody, on criminal organizations, criminal gangs, what to look out for to be safe. But the whole thing is networking, because we know criminals, unfortunately, don't adhere to a jurisdictional boundary. So this is that networking, those resources to, hopefully be more effective and efficient in our, daily duties.
Okay. And how many folks are you expecting at this year's conference?
So we on average at these conferences average a couple hundred attendees. that come here not only for the training, but we get a ton of support from different sponsors, donations, and vendors. So this year at IA, we're going to have 20 plus different vendors on site that are geared towards, the law enforcement community, whether it's technology-based companies that can assist law enforcement, in your job, to, equipment vendors, and not only that, but like different agencies that can assist not only on duty, but off duty to get those resources to our attendees and our members and whoever, to be honest. We're going to have those on site as well, in addition to, other things that, networking and other resources we have.
Okay, good. Now, all right. So let's take a look at this agenda. And for those at home, we'll have links in the show notes. It'll take you right to MGIA website. If you're interested in registering, going to the conference, all the information will be there in the show notes. And we'll also have a YouTube version of this where we'll actually show the agenda as we're talking about it. So it's the first thing, Monday morning, 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we have the topic of outlaw motorcycle gangs taught by the Indiana State Police Intelligence Unit.
Yeah, so this is just, to start it off for the day. We have 4 days of training going on, May 8th through the 11th. So that's a Monday through Thursday here in South Bend at the Doubletree Hotel. So yeah, so that first topic, Indiana State Police, they're a great agency to work with. Our agency works with them often, not only for intel purposes, but they have different other units, whether it's electronic surveillance unit or working with their all crimes policing unit to, combat, illegal gangs, illegal drugs, illegal weapons. So their intelligence unit is kind of focused on outlaw motorcycle gangs and other criminal organizations. So their unit provides not only great information to the state of Indiana, but what's also going around the Midwest and across the country, kind of like a Gangs 101 type thing, but to also bring you up to date, updates, what's going on, different crime trends, and other things like that. So that's what's starting off this year at the national conference on Monday. So it should be a good one. These guys are a wealth of knowledge, and it should be a good presentation.
Oh, good. And I forgot to mention that each one of these presenters is brand new to the conference. So one of the things that the conference strives to do is to have new presenters each and every year. So normally when you go to a conference year in and year out, you usually have the same presenters. With this conference, it's new presenters each and every year to get a different perspective on each one of these topics.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. What we try to do is like, hey, what's going on currently, current events, or what are current topics, what, different jurisdictions, or what are officers kind of facing, out there. So that's what we try to, to do. And each training's different. Each conference, we try to not the same topic, same presenter. So we want to try to have that plethora, that smorgasbord of different options. So it's just not the same conference every year.
Yeah. So I think you're going to get the Indiana perspective on this. And as you mentioned, it is going to be Gang 101, but I imagine that there's going to be a little bit of case study, a little bit of, for lack of better words, show and tell there on what they're seeing there in Indiana that other folks in attendance may also be seeing.
Exactly on that. And that's just kind of what we see here. But then what's happening here in South Bend or Indiana is just happening in any other community, across the Midwest and the country.
Okay. And so then after that, from 12 to 4 p.m., Deputy Chief Kurt Bensheimer. All right. Bensheimer, again, also from Indiana, from the Indiana Department of Corrections, is going to be given the gang perspective from the prison side of things.
Yeah, so Kurt does a great presentation. Not only we're doing like the Gangs 101, because we're going to get a lot of new members or new attendees to this conference, or new to actually, criminal organizations or gangs. So we always want to have those type of 101 type classes So they get that awareness of like what are certain hand signs, what are certain tattoos, the same signs, symbols, insignia, and different trends. So we definitely want to hit that pretty heavily. But we also know we have a huge following of individuals in the field of correction. So this is like, all right, this is what Indiana's seeing, and what others are working towards. Because Kurt has been involved in investigations not only in Indiana, but also what we've seen is Indiana has strong ties to all over the country with different investigations. And to give that perspective and that insight, Kurt does a very good job, very insightful, but it's also a good thing it builds that conversation, that networking of like, okay, we see this over in Ohio, or we see this in Nebraska. So it's another way to develop those conversations over the entire span of the conference.
Yeah, and it's been a couple of decades since I've studied information on prison gangs, but 20 years ago when I did study it, I was fascinated that, you have your prison gangs, and when they're in prison, they may be into one particular prison gang, but then when they leave, they might not necessarily be part of each other's gangs. So you might have had to be buddy there in prison, being part of the same gang, but then when you leave, you might be part of two different separate gangs when you're out on the street. So it can be a different perspective entirely inside the prison as opposed to outside on the street.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good way, and some of the other presenters and topics that we have will actually touch on that, like what's happening and how the streets and prison kind of worlds are different, but they're very similar in how they're connected. So
yeah, and that's a pretty long though. That's a 4-hour segment there. So for those listening, there's always breaks. They go for 45 minutes or so and give a break. So there'll be breaks in between, but 4 hours, that's a pretty big chunk of time on this topic.
Oh, yeah. And it's very important to have that basis. So if you're working in this field, and I guess from my perspective, too, is being part of this association and also being, an elected member, vice president of the Indiana chapter, but also on the executive board at the entire association of MGIA, this plays a huge role of having that information. So when you have to testify in court or use this information from your training, experience, and knowledge in an affidavit, we want to try and give you, from, A to Z, top to bottom, so on and so forth. So you can be prepared when you go to court and they actually have that training. So when you have that certificate at the end, we have our foundation covered to better prepare our members and attendees.
Yeah. And it also helps with the sessions later in the week too. If you have these very fundamental sessions in the beginning of the week, you can have more higher level, more difficult discussions in the sessions later in the week.
Absolutely.
All right, great. All right, so that's till 4 p.m. on Monday, and then we finish up the day in terms of the sessions, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. with Jay Becker from ATWJE and talking about drug test kit certification.
Yes, Jay's an excellent guy. If you've been to trainings related to mixed drugs or gangs or anything like that, Jay is at a lot of these conferences as a vendor. So Jay and ATWJE will also be on site as a vendor as well, and actually has a special gift for all attendees for this conference. So if you come, you're going to get a gift from ATWJE on this. So a shout out to Jay and ATWJE for that. But this is another way to, these field kits is what we use at South Bend PD and others use in our area from our investigations and our operations. They're a great tool to use. And this is another way to, hey, you come, you're going to get an additional certification. So to assist you in your training, but also your job duties. So it's a good thing. It's another topic that isn't often done, and we wanted to offer that to our attendees this year. So it's a quick hour. You get your certification on their drug test kits, and maybe you can walk away with some or something else over when at the conference.
All right, great. And then each and every night there will be a networking and hospitality event from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so the first one will be Monday evening on the 8th. And so for those, again, that may have never attended this conference, what should they expect from that session?
So, and I think we actually have a dedicated room for hospitality. So we have snacks, we have different dishes available, but this is another way to network. And I think this is where you learn from the training, but what I've learned the most over the years is building those relationships, building those contacts, getting somebody's email address, phone number, so you can text or call somebody, for questions. And I think this is actually where a lot at these conferences it pays off, is just building those relationships, building that network. So if you have a problem, if you have to ask a question, or you need to identify another agency, this is where it's at. This is how you learn. And I think it's that additional on the job training, and we try to assist with that with different networking events. I think we're going to maybe have some cornhole, some different other games and activities, but yeah, we provide refreshments for everybody, and hopefully people take advantage of that at the hotel if they choose. But we also have different things outside of the hotel in downtown South Bend for individuals to enjoy and explore in the area. But this is what it's all about. Every night, Monday through Thursday, hospitality from 5 to 10 to build those relationships, making new friendships, making new connections, and having a good time.
Nice. All right. And this brings us to Tuesday. 8 a.m. will be opening ceremonies, and certainly will be the part of every conference. You will have the honor guard there. You will have your chief there at South Bend Police Department. He will speak, and that will really get the party started in terms of the conference. And then the first session of the day is at 8:30, and that is taught by Jim Bontrager.
Right, yeah, there you go, Jim Bontrager. Yep.
He is going to talk about Sun Tzu.
Yep. So he's talking about that and basically building up. It's kind of like a motivational talk, officer resiliency, leadership aspects, but a whole mental health aspect, getting you in that right frame of mind, because most of these officers or whatever type of law enforcement you come in, are mostly proactive. And I think in today's climate is we need something for that reassurance. So, hey, how are we going to start this conference off after opening ceremonies is to get everybody on that right track, that right mindset. And I think Jim does a great presentation. He's not an officer. He's a military veteran. He does these trainings all over the country, especially who he's with the International Conference of Police Chaplains. So he not only with that, but also the spiritual aspect of it. And Jim's just a great guy and an advocate of this profession. Really looking forward to his presentation and starting it off right, building us the mental and the attitude aspect for our attendees. So it should be a good time.
Yeah, it sounds like a great session. And we've talked several times on my show, analysts ensuring that their mental health is up to speed, and that they realize that the stuff that they're being exposed to can have an impact on them. This topic has come up time and time again, and I'm seeing it in more and more conferences, the topic of mental health. So this should be a great session. This runs from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. So it's going to take you all the way up till lunch. You get off for lunch 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Start back at 1 p.m. with The History or Hate by David Schilling.
Yep. And I guess just to go back, we have that time allotted for lunch, but here at the conference, we're nonprofit. This is where you get the most bang for your buck. We know agencies are cash strapped, or even some agencies, some of the attendees are paying for their own way. So this is where if you come here, not only you're getting the training conference, you're getting your certificate for your hours, for your continuing education, you get membership to the association or secured website, but we're also providing, free refreshment, free snacks, but lunch every day is on us. So you don't have to worry. Yeah. So we take care of it. It's going to be all hot lunches for for 3 of the days, and snacks and hospitality is, with us. So this is where the $300 around their registration fee covers a lot for you. So not only the 20 plus different vendors, the different training, the certificates, the membership, etc., but we're also, this is another way to say thanks and give back to, our brothers and sisters in this law enforcement profession.
All right. Nice. All right. Well, yeah, I was going to ask about lunch spots after we got over the agenda, but lunch is taken care of. That's great. All right. Let's get into this session by David Schilling then.
Yep. So David's a great guy. He's part of MGIA. He started, doing this research. He's out of the state of Minnesota, been in corrections for a long time, but you're going to learn a lot about, we've seen in the news, but like, hey, towards like white supremacists, those type of gangs and the crimes they're involved in. But he really gets into this specialized training for related to like the Norse and Germanic ruins, the Ruick ciphers, Odinism and that type of stuff, and how that can relate to, jail practices. What are these jail and correctional officers seeing? And from that experience, how can they also relate that to the officers out on the street? So I think it's a very informative thing, and he brings in a different aspect that most may come across and don't even realize it. So this is just another one of those ways to bring in something new, something fresh, a type of topic that some may know about, but some may not. And for the most part, most may not know about this type of topic, these symbols and information to better themselves in their investigation and intel gathering.
From 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. then is Dark Web and Crypto by Larry Cameron, who is part of the Anti-Human Trafficking and Intelligence Initiative. So this is another great topic. It's one that I expect to see at almost every conference when it comes to law enforcement.
Absolutely. So Larry actually is another one of our speakers with ATWJE. He's based out of Canada. So we're having a lot of speakers, not only from Indiana and around the Midwest, but actually abroad. So Larry's out of Canada with this. And this is just another topic of like, okay, what do we have? Dark web and crypto. I know just in gang investigations, but this is going to help out to human trafficking, sex trafficking, child exploitation, drug investigations, weapon investigations. So having officers on kind of like that intro to dark web and crypto investigations, I think is going to be another key highlight to bring that variety of these different training topics. And, if officers, get that niche, they can further explore later. So I'm looking forward to it, this presentation time. Because I think we're seeing that more and more, even in the Indiana area of drugs and guns and et cetera, moving towards that electronic payment with stuff. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and I think people will be surprised what they find in there. And I think there's always stuff to learn from that side. So I do expect that to be a well-attended session. All right, then at 5 p.m., we have the MGIA board meeting. Now, for that board meeting, is that open to all attendees, or is that just for association members?
Yeah, so that's going to be for like our elected positions. So that's just another way where, we have our board meetings, for the different chapters and the executive board to handle all the non-fun stuff. So all the board paperwork. So yeah, we have that allotted for us on who's attending. And that's also another way it's during networking time and hospitality along with that night. But yeah, that's just for the board members for the association.
Okay, so then 5 o'clock, you got the evening to yourself to either go part of networking or explore the area. Wednesday, then, 8 a.m., we start with Michael Ricks, Gwinnett County Police Department in Georgia. He's going to be talking about hybrid gang dynamics, the emerging threats.
Yeah, so, this is just another thing of getting more perspective from other jurisdictions, from other places in the county. And where he's at, he's in the metro Atlanta area, and speaking with him on his, duties, he's involved in, a different task force, working gangs. So he gets to see that, but it's also what they're seeing down there is what we're seeing here in South Bend, but also in other areas, Chicago or any other big city, is hybrid gangs. But kind of what we mentioned before about how the prison gangs, you may be a gang out on the streets, and then when you're in prison, it's different. He's going to go show you how the landscape, how unstructured everything is, and how everything is going through social media and through music groups, etc., and how that plays a big role in how these gangs act, and how there is no structure or lack thereof. So it's going to be another exciting thing on what everybody's dealing with, whether in rural areas to urban areas, on this, how gangs are evolving and how we should actually focus on them.
Yeah, because if it's hard for law enforcement to identify, that makes it easier on them to be able to do the things that they want to do. And it is the idea of flattening out an organization. So it's not so much from the bottom up, but more of a flattening out that allows, if 1-2 people get arrested, the gang can still work around that implication. Now, when they use the word gang here, is there going to be a special definition? Do you know?
No, so there's a federal definition for gangs, and it's pretty much standard across the board. But like in
Mm-hmm.
Indiana, a gang is called a criminal organization, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
foundation is criminal activity. I think people have seen in the news on how some police departments or agencies got in trouble for profiling or identifying or individuals as gang members. But here in Indiana, what our PD does is, hey, the foundation is always criminal activity. You investigate the crime and then you investigate the individual. So, and I think it's hard to identify these hybrid gangs on, how do we classify them? How do we identify them? And from our experience, and I'm speaking with Mr. Ricks, is you just gotta they'll tell you what they're claiming or what they're doing. You can't put them in a box. Let them identify themselves and go from there. But I think that's from law enforcement is we're so structured, and we hate that word change. Is we got to get through the times and what we see and what we hear and what we know, and just follow it that way. And that is the hardest thing of working these gangs, these hybrid gangs, neighborhood-based gangs, is trying to tell that story to a prosecutor or district attorney, trying to how to educate the judge, the public, the jury on this stuff, on like what actual gang culture, because it's not ranked, hey, you have here's our membership, you pay your dues, you do this. Now it's all about that neighborhood base, who where you grew up, that family. How do you do this to survive? And I think that it's a big way, and the laws are there. It's just how do you articulate it? So.
Okay. And then from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Matt Richardson from Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative will be talking about OSINT, social media, sex trafficking, and CSE.
Yep. So I think this is another thing he's, with Larry Cameron, Matt's from Canada as well, is just exploring, social media. It's a huge thing, but he's going to bring his experience on working, sex trafficking, child sex exploitation cases, using open sources to do this, because a lot of gangs organizations are involved in human trafficking, and not only that, but trafficking drugs and guns. So he's going to give that perspective, because I think that's another thing is what we're going to see is, unfortunately, we have a lot of, with the rise of social media and these different type of forms where you can make money, doing videos and pictures, where unfortunately a lot of juveniles are involved. So he's going to bring this different aspect of maybe this is another way our gangs are making money, and tools and resources you can use, through open source and social media to work these investigations. So another exciting one on definitely a crime trend it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, and this is another session here that every law enforcement conference in the country is going to have this topic. This isn't going away, and you're going to see this year in and year out at almost every conference for the foreseeable future, because there's just so much information there, so much to analyze and so much to use in casework that it's not going away anytime soon.
Nope.
So then lunch is paid for, as you mentioned, that's 12 to 1. And then from 1 to 5 p.m. is Emily Constanetta and Richie Sanchez from Los Angeles Sheriff's Department talking about gang crime analysis.
Yeah, so this is another exciting one. So kind of like here at South Bend PD, we have several crime analysts and a real-time crime center, and we like to get our crime analysts involved. They're one of the officers. Granted, they're behind a desk and a radio and doing everything on the computer, but we try to incorporate with a lot of our drug and gang investigations where they're with us during the operations, hearing our radio traffic, getting them involved to make them part of the team, so they make the jobs of the officers on the streets that much more effective, that much more efficient, where that's where we do a lot at South Bend PD. So this is cool. We got referred to them through the International Association of Crime Analysts, great organization, and looking forward to this on how kind of like the LA Sheriff's Department, so you get some updates on some West Coast gang trends, but how they incorporate using crime analysts with their gang unit and other units to kind of like what I brought up. So I'm looking forward to this big time. And so is our members of our department, because we want to see what techniques and things we can take from what they've been doing. So this should be a good thing. We got 4 hours of that. And it's just another example of bringing different speakers from all over the country to the Midwest.
Yeah, and that's probably going to go hand in hand with the session before that, the OSINT social media. Lots of information to be gathering by the analyst, helping gang investigators that are out in the street, let alone everything that they have at their disposal within the department. So should be various products that you're going to see, various types of data, and just telling the story. And as you mentioned, using the computer to help out the whole goal of the gang investigation. Then again, we got hospitality time there in the evening on Wednesday. And then last day is Thursday the 11th. We start at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. with Chief DPA Amy Greasy and Michelle Kobruski.
If you can say that name, hey, I'm Polish and I can't say her name, but yes, Amy Cressy and then Michelle Gobolewski.
They're from the prosecutor's office, and they're going to talk about gang prosecution.
Yep. So they're here in St. Joe County, Indiana, where South Bend, Indiana is at. They're great to work with, and we're very fortunate over here, the working relationship with our prosecutor's office. They actually come to when we have a search warrant, they're there with the scene. They have on-call prosecutors where they come out during the investigation, where it's a shooting or homicide, or if we're working a major drug or gang investigation. So these two have been working with them for a long time, and they do a good presentation with gang prosecutions, but how the prosecutor's office or district attorneys can be proactive in working together. So what we do in South Bend kind of towards gun and gang violence is, through GVI, group violence intervention. So it's a data-driven, intelligence-led strategy towards prevention and enforcement of gun and gang crime. So about, working together to, dismantle a gang, or going after an individual involved in the gang, that sort of thing. What different techniques, what type of case studies to present to people, to give new people ideas is a huge, huge thing. And they do a great presentation. And it's just another thing to highlight what we're doing here, but to give that experience can be shared across the board, no matter what jurisdiction you're from.
Yes. You need prosecution on your side. It goes without saying. But yeah, that should be a good session. I'm liking all this, the different aspects to this agenda, and you got all the major players so far getting time on stage. So this is great. So that's 10 a.m. We go from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We have retired ATF Richard Mayer Boning. He's going to talk about leadership and complex investigations.
Yeah, so it goes by Major, but yeah, he just recently retired from the ATF. He's from like the Texas, Louisiana area. He does a great presentation on kind of like putting together task forces, working with, local, state, and federal agencies together, seeing it because one agency can't handle it, the problem's bigger. And just with some of these cases where it actually led to, in Texas, Louisiana, that area, but had a strong connection, and there was work being done not only by agencies over down south, but over here in Indiana as well, kind of what I mentioned earlier with Indiana DOC reference criminal organization. So he puts on a good thing about leadership, working together. So it's kind of that catch-all. Like, so if you need something, if you have a big problem, how to work together, how to find other resources, where if you're a municipality working with your different federal agencies, where your offices are at, the different offices. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one because this is kind of what we do a lot in our area. And this could be another thing where it could give some good insight to maybe some jurisdictions that are having a problem and need to, work together on these different gang investigations.
Yeah, well, if you're around long enough, you learn a thing or two about how to work with all the different departments in law enforcement. So I'm sure that's going to be a great perspective.
The politics involved. But hey, for the most part, I will say this, everybody, the common goal is to keep people safe and put the bad guys away. So, but always that P word.
Yep. All right. So then we go to lunch, and then after lunch from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., Special Agent with the ATF, Levi Tinder, is going to talk about ghost guns and PMFs.
Yep. So I think that's a huge trend, what we've been seeing. I know we deal with it so much, but ghost guns, and then the PMFs, the privately manufactured firearms, dealing with those situations. But I think the huge thing is the different switches, the auto sears with the Glock handguns, making them, from semi-automatic to full auto. and the different trends and stuff with that. So that is a unfortunate thing that we're experiencing in many communities across the country with these different firearms. So to give a good insight, good training, what to be aware of, what to look out for, but also how to investigate these crimes as well. So I think this is a hot trend going on, and we're lucky to have him in these topics at this conference.
Yeah, I imagine there's going to be some really good intel coming out of that session.
Yeah, definitely, especially being out of, Chicago field office. So as everybody knows through the news over the years, I mean, Chicago's definitely experienced that, and South Bend falls in that area of, the Chicago field office. So yeah, we deal with that a lot, and I'm sure people are going to get the much needed information and awareness from it.
Okay. And then we today 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. with Isaac Hunt, Goodwill Industries. It's of City of South Bend, talking about place and community relations.
Yeah, this is another thing is, it's not always, I think we have to say this is, we have to go after the right individuals, but there's always going to be some that need that help. And whether it's through community outreach teams or working through the city, different government programs or private industry, or even the police, itself, but building that police community trust, what can be done to build that. And I think that's a good thing that's helped us over in our area over here, but is just making those connections where, maybe the police shouldn't get involved and we can have different outlets. So Isaac puts on a great conversation, great presentation on building those relationships. And, and he's one of those guys that lived that life and then change his life around. So bringing up his real world experiences and what he's done to, not only, help others, but maybe, how it can encourage others, in this career field to, work with others. So it's definitely a great insight, and it's a different thing that not too many different conferences have. So we're lucky to have him present for this one.
Yeah, and that really does make it so well-rounded. That is going to be an interesting perspective, and I'm sure a fantastic story. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, and that finishes out the conference then. So as mentioned, there's a lot there for everybody, and whatever your position is and your goals are, whether you're just starting out in gang investigations or that you've been doing it for a while, there's definitely some new perspectives and some different perspectives here at this conference. All right, Lieutenant, I did want to finish out talking a little bit of fun. So in the evenings there, the attendees are going to be out on their own and be out in South Bend. Is there maybe some restaurants that you recommend or some sights to see?
Yeah, so every night, we've over the years, the downtown area in South Bend has been, redone, revamped. So it's a good time to experience some local foods, whether it's, Irish or visit some local pubs or, breweries in the area. So it's a good time, even just to walk the area. It's on the St. Joe River. We got some things, even if you just want to take a walk, exercise, do that. But we're also close to the University of Notre Dame. So if there's any Fighting Irish fans that want to go visit campus, see everything, the grotto, etc. It's just a few minute walk, just north of the hotel. So it's a great area. And then within, good driving distance of, 25, 30 minutes is Southwest Michigan. So the restaurants, the breweries, the different areas, it's a cool little place to experience getting some good grub and some different drinks in the area. So we'll have the different options available to everybody on site. Yeah, because we want people to explore. And if people don't want to explore and hang out at the hotel, this is why we have the hospitality and the different events, everything. So this is looking forward to it and try to make it as easy as possible for everybody attending. So looking forward.
All right, great. As we mentioned, we'll have all the information in the show notes. And again, this is May 8th through the 11th in South Bend, Indiana at the DoubleTree by Hilton Hotel. And if you're listening to this and you have an upcoming conference, you want us to do a deep dive on your agenda, please contact us at leapodcasts@gmail.com. All right, Lieutenant, I usually let people have the last word, and so I'll give you the last word. What do you want to leave our listeners with?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. But yeah, MGIA is all about networking, providing training, but just to keep people safe. And that's most importantly. So hopefully everybody listening to this, hopefully we can get some to attend South Bend in May. Visit MGIA.org is our website to learn more about the association and our different trainings. But yeah, come out here. There's going to be some great vendors to learn and get some different resources and contacts at. But I do want to mention, man, we have some excellent raffle prizes. So if you attend, you're going to have the opportunity to win some pretty cool gear, some different products. We even have several firearms available to win. So we try to, from A to Z, we try to have it covered for you here and you get your money's worth. So look forward to it. Anything we can do as an association, let us know. And I just want everybody to be safe. And thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you so much. Best of luck with the conference, and you be safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. You can show your support by sharing this and other episodes found on our website at www.leapodcasts.com. If you have a topic you would like us to cover or have a suggestion for our next guest, please send us an email at leapodcasts@gmail.com. Till next time, analysts, keep talking.